Beyond here, there's no map. How you get there is where you'll arrive. How you get there is where you'll arrive. Philip Booth's poem, Heading Out, is a reminder of what the saints of old and the new discoveries of quantum physics continually reveal, which is that everything is in flux. Everything is changing. Everything is being created. All things are coming to be moment by moment. I turned 46 yesterday, and I have to say 45 was a year of humility for me, and I suspect 46 will continue this same theme. My daughter called me yesterday and asked me if I felt old. No, I said. What makes you think I'm old? Dad, she said, you did have surgery on your knee. As if this was some indication of old age. What hit me hardest, I think, is that not only did I have surgery for the first time, it was my very first injury. I tore my ACL and meniscus playing basketball. It was the worst pain I have ever experienced. I've witnessed up close and personal 2 children entering this world, and I'm here to tell you the pain I felt was worse than birthing a child. I can say this because I'm a man. I was talking once to my sister about the pain of childbirth, and I quoted Jesus, who said that after a mother gives birth to her child, she no longer remembers the pain of childbirth, to which she responded, that sounds like something a man would say. One of the many lessons I have learned in this season of life's changes is that I'm not invincible. I know that perhaps most people realize this much earlier in their lives, but hear me out. I've played high-impact sports my entire life. Throughout high school, college, and well into adulthood, I have played baseball, soccer, football, volleyball, tennis, softball, basketball, even ultimate frisbee. I have jumped off of cliffs. I have skied impossible terrain. I have rappelled down mountains and even city buildings. And it was a friendly game of pickup basketball that did me in, reminding me that everything changes. My 45, now 46-year-old knee is just 4 months out of surgery. I'm slower today than I ever have been. I used to run a 4.640. I timed myself before preaching this sermon, and I'm not going to tell you how slow I am now. Everything changes. My body is changing. I do take modest comfort these days in Thomas Aquinas' claim that a hard body is a soft mind. I once said this to a friend of mine who was pretty overweight at the time, and he said in reply, I must be a genius. But change troubles us. Change deals too much with uncertainty, with the unknown. And in truth, change maybe wouldn't be so troubling if we knew exactly how it was going to affect us. If we could somehow anticipate what would happen next. I might have chosen, for instance, to sleep in on the morning of my injury, or at least be a little less aggressive on the court. It's the unpredictability, the unexpected nature of change that frightens us and so often compels us to resist it at every turn. If there has ever been a person who has troubled this world with change, it's Jesus. It is helpful to remember today the context within which Jesus has been speaking his parables. The teachings and parables of Jesus we find in these final pages of Matthew's gospel is a stage set in chapter 23 when Jesus tells the people that the scribes and Pharisees have seated themselves upon the seat of Moses. Therefore, all the things they might tell you, whatever they are, do and observe, but do not act in accord with their deeds. For they speak, says Jesus, and they do not do. They speak and do not do. As we learn throughout the Gospels, the teachers of Israel that Jesus is continually confronting are those who preach tradition while neglecting the weightier matters of the heart. Jesus tells the scribes and Pharisees that while they tithe a tenth of their harvest, they offer no justice, no mercy, and they lack faith in God's ability to transform the hearts of people. They trust in externals and neglect the kingdom of God within. Jesus hammers this message home by telling these would-be teachers of the law that they are whitewashed tombs. They wipe all around the outside of the chalice and leave the inside dirty. It's a bit like taking the coffee mug on my desk, washing all around the rim and cleaning the handle while failing to remove what's been growing inside since I left it there last week. That may be too much information, though if you know what I'm talking about, it's probably because you've done the same. There's mold in your heart, says Jesus, and it's hiding the light within you. Not only this, Jesus tells the people that the attention they give to appearing holy, focusing so much on keeping with tradition, is meaningless, even detrimental, because their hearts are closed, quarantined to those around them. Bearing this in mind, we come to the parable of the talents, and we begin to see more clearly that what Jesus is inviting us to hear, see, and perceive is that we have been entrusted with the gift of an inner aliveness. A talent simply means a weight of measurement used for purchasing. In Jesus' parable, however, we must not miss that it is given in trust so that the weight of the gift would increase. It is important to note the double meaning of this weight, especially given the background that Jesus sets earlier in Matthew 23, when he tells the scribes that they neglect the weightier matters of justice, love, and mercy. In a nutshell, the master comes back to his slaves. And the first one says, "Master, look, I've doubled your gift." "Well done," says the master. "I trusted you with little, now I will trust you with more." The next slave in turn says, "Master, look, I've doubled your gift too." "Marvelous," says the master. "I will now entrust you with more." The third slave comes along with a similar eagerness, though fearful, saying, "Master, I knew you, that you are a harsh man, that you reap where you do not sow and you gather where you do not scatter. So being fearful to please, I hid what you gave me. Here it is, exactly as it was before you left." "You knew me, did you?" asked the master. The exchange between the master and the third slave, where he tells the master, "I knew you," should ring in our ears from the previous parable of the 10 bridesmaids, when the bridegroom says to the foolish maids, "I do not know you." The first two slaves do know the master, which is why they need not say to the master that they know him. They simply act on who they know him to be, even though it involves risk. The third slave, who is compelled to tell the master that he knows him, reveals that he only knows about the master. His knowledge and his knowing are separate. It is superficial knowledge. It is not the know-how of Jesus. One of the principal teachings of Jesus is that knowledge is a living process. Knowledge is a living process. What we know and how we know it are inseparable. Now, while this may sound commonsensical, who among us does not have the tendency to separate what we know from how we know it? If we are not careful, we end up treating our own thoughts as if they are independently true, the end-all, be-all of any given situation. When I am not aware of how my thoughts about a particular thing or person are bound up together with how I think, how my thoughts come to be through my own background and social conditioning, I will objectify that person or thing, reducing them to something static or fixed, something that is not in the process of being created. I will not treat them as one who, like me, is in flux, coming to be. We do the same things with ourselves also. The third slave in Jesus' parable reveals this all too human tendency. He tells the master, I was afraid, and it is his fear that keeps him from knowing the master. The master had entrusted him with a gift. The master was inviting the slave to share in the aliveness of the master. The slave's fear, however, turned him in on himself. He worried so much about what the master would do to him and failed to receive the abundant gift the master was giving him. The master was inviting him into a partnership, entrusting him with the talent. He was freeing the slave from his enslavement to fear. He was inviting the slave to become a friend and to see himself as a master with the master in the weightier matters of love and mercy. He is invited to master, to channel and harness the gift he had been given. His fear of what might happen, however, keeps him from the infinite possibilities of the gift. He had forgotten what Benjamin Zander calls rule number 6, which is to not take yourself so damn seriously. For those of us who take ourselves seriously, we always ask, well, what are rules 1 through 5? There are no rules 1 through 5. It's just rule number 6. Stop taking yourself so damn seriously. You see, by tending his fears and not the talent he had received, the slave takes himself more seriously than the freedom he had been given. He is so focused on himself that he is unable to know the master. Rather than tending God's love, we too often find ourselves tending our fears. We bury the light of God for fear that we might snuff it out somehow. Like the slave in our parable, however, when we bury our talents, we prematurely dig our own graves, missing out on the abundant life we have been given if we would but receive our life from God, as though receiving the freedom to inhabit the aliveness of God. When we take seriously the light of our being, the sacredness of life, tending God's love instead of tending our fears, we shine brightly with the flame of Christ in our souls, light all things, opening others to the sacredness of God within. In our Wednesday night study, we've been talking about the Eucharist and what it means to live a sacramental life. And what has become clear is that how I receive the sacraments of God, how I receive Eucharist, for instance, conditions the transformation that may or may not follow. There is a world in that wafer we receive. It is a world of possibility. It is the world of incarnation. God desires to bring about the mystery of divine embodiment in us as a talent of heaven is placed in the palm of our hands. We can receive it as something that multiplies the aliveness within, or we can be as Pharisees and treat it as a ritual without substance. If we, like the first two slaves, however, receive this sacrament as freedom and life, we will become sacrament. We will become portals of the sacred, instantiations of God, as we illumine the sacred in each other, in all things. We have been given the gift of living into reality the sacredness of all things. As we do, the aliveness of the Spirit will increase in ourselves and in the world. This will involve not taking ourselves so damn seriously, but rather giving our attention to tending God's love. Hereby will we recognize that the weightier things of life are justice, mercy, grace, and forgiveness. And we will only arrive at justice, mercy, grace, and forgiveness if these continually become our mode of being. These are the talents of God we are given. They are not to be buried, lest we, like fearful slaves, bury ourselves with them. Amen.